Alright, so almost to the end here. Let's take a look at number 9. There's words, yes, but don't be afraid. The number of people following you on Instagram has been growing exponentially at a rate of 12% each week. So again, exponentially means that we're not talking about something that it's at a steady rate, right, where people are following you on Instagram. Exponential refers to something, at least growth, something that starts off really small and then just really kind of takes off. Right, so it's not something that's increasing at a constant rate. It's something that's increasing at an increasing rate, which is something that we saw in the last unit. So because we see that word exponentially, right, because we see that word exponentially, that means that we're going to have a different equation that's going to help us get through this. We have to then decide, well, is what's happening in the problem, is it something that's growing, getting bigger, or something that's decaying, something that's getting smaller? Well, they even used that word growing, so then that means that we're going to be using exponential growth, so for this one we're not using decay. So what we want to see is that it says y equals A. A represents the initial amount where something starts. So A is our initial amount. Let's see, where does our Instagram followers start? If you started, oh, there's that word started. So if you started with 15, so that would be our A. And then it says 1 plus the rate, which in this case is R. And what is the rate? Oh, rate of 12%. Remember, we put this into a decimal, so 12%, think money, 12% would be 12 cents. Right, 0.12, and so that's our growth rate. And then the last thing we need to know is just the time interval. How, what period of time are we talking about? Could be written as x. Sometimes we write that as t as well to indicate time. It says how many weeks? Oh, well, that means that we don't know. That means we're actually solving for t, right? So what we want to do with this is that we're actually going to solve for time. Because what we're saying here is that you got some Twitter followers or Instagram followers. It's going up, and we want to know how long is it going to be before what? Oh, before I have 100 followers. So now there's another number in the problem. I'm like, where am I going to stick that? Well, that's what y represents. What's not labeled here, but what y represents. Maybe we can add this to our little list here. Y represents the ending amount. What you end up with. So we're saying, how long would it be before you ended up with 100 followers? So that's going to be our 100 right there. So in the last unit, what we were solving for, in most cases, we were solving for this number here. Like we plugged all this in and then got that number. This one's a little bit different. We're actually applying, we're going to need to use logarithms here in a second because we're actually solving for time. So that's what's going to be a little bit different. All right, well, so what I need this to do is I need this to look like Ben, base exponent number, and it doesn't. What I need to do is so a couple of things I want to do. First of all, I need to combine what's inside the parentheses there. So I would have 1.12 to the t. Okay, there's my base, there's my exponent, there's my number, and then it's like, hey, wait, there's this extra 15 here. Well, what I need to do is I need to divide both sides by 15. Because what I want this to be, what it should be, base exponent number, really should only be three things: a base, an exponent, and a number. So as I look at this, I've got the base, I've got the exponent, I've got a number, but then this guy, this 15, he's extra. Well, that's all right. That says 15 times. The opposite of multiplication would be division. Now, if we do 100 divided by 15, we end up getting 6.6 repeating, or well, at least 6.7. So what I want to do is that since it kind of came out to a nasty decimal, it didn't divide evenly. What I'm going to end up doing is actually just leaving that as a fraction because I don't want to round too early, and then I can end up throwing off my problem a little bit. So I'm actually just going to leave that as a fraction, 100 divided by 15. And then I'm going to wait until we throw it in the calculator here in a second and let the calculator sort it all out. So 1.12 to the what power makes 100 over 15? Well, whew, I don't know, right? So this is where we definitely need to use a calculator for this. And this is where we're using logs. So our exponent, which in this case is t, is equal to log of the number, which our number in this case is 100 divided by 15. And then that whole thing is going to be divided by the log of the base, which the base in this case is 1.12. So at this point we would throw all of this in the calculator. We'll do a little squiggly since we're going to probably be rounding here. So how I would type that in is that I would say log of 100 divided by 15, right? If you want to do a fraction in the calculator, you just enter it in as a division problem. So 100 divided by 15 like that. And then that whole thing, make sure you get that in parentheses because we're doing the log of that fraction. Close off the parentheses and then divided by the log of 1.12. And we get 16.7. Let's just round to the nearest whole number. So we're going to say 17 weeks, right? Because that was our time frame, was weeks. So 17 weeks. What is 17 weeks to do what? Well, we were saying again, Instagram followers. So you started with 15 people. We wanted to know how long would it be before you'd get 100. And if it grew at this rate, and we're also making an assumption here that it's going to grow at this rate. Maybe you just get so big and popular, it starts growing at 20%, 30%. So we're making an assumption that it grows at a rate of 12%. Well, in that case, for you to go from 15 to 100, it would take approximately 17 weeks. All right, so go ahead and stop now. Try number 9, and then we are almost done.